Hello, I'm Caroline Marshall, and welcome to Bump to Business Owner, the podcast speaking to mums in business, you. I'll be in conversation with some of the most inspiring women and mothers in enterprise about their journey, how they created their successful businesses alongside raising their children, and what that looks like in work and family life. Hello and welcome back to Bump to Business Owner. I'm your host, Caroline Marshall, and in this Christmas special, I'm joined by psychologist, speaker, and mum of three, Dr. Tuesday. With a doctorate in psychology and a career dedicated to maternal mental health, identity, and self-trust, Dr. Tuesday helps mothers unpick the perfectionism and pressure that can so easily take hold, especially at this time of year. Together, we explore how the festive season can amplify the invisible load for business-owning mums, the expectation to create a magical Christmas, keep everything spinning at work, and somehow stay calm, grateful, and joyful while doing it. This episode is for anyone feeling the pressure of performance and the exhaustion of the Christmas hustle. It's a conversation about letting go, coming back to what matters, and finding peace in the messy middle, both in business and at home. Dr. Tuesday, I'm such a fan. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really can't think of anyone better to really talk about the anti-Christmas hustle, which I'm so into.
You're so kind. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Something that always really resonates with me when I engage with your content and look at what you're doing is that identity shift in motherhood. And I think for so many of us, I don't like to age some of us, but that we're 90s good girls ticking all the boxes. And I think, I know I definitely identify with this of it's that real clash of girl boss era versus the reality. I'm like, no, I can do this all. My mothers were working mothers. I can go back after 6 weeks and be myself again and feel like it's such a shock to the system. Why do you think it is that our generation, millennial mothers, might find this so hard and find this time of year so hard as well?
Gosh, there's so much to unpack when it comes to millennial mothers. There are so many collisions going on, I think, for us internally all the time. Of course, our experiences, our expectations even are heavily shaped by, the world we grew up in, which was a really different time. And like you mentioned, the good girl and the girl boss era, that's kind of what we were primed for, right? We were raised to be the good girls, don't say too much, don't talk too loudly, don't make a fuss, just get on with it and, do it all on your own. You can do this. Come on, get up, keep going kind of thing. And we had mothers who we watched doing exactly that, who powered through everything at all costs, I came into motherhood with visions of my own mum, immaculately dressed, full face of makeup, 3 kids, 2 jobs, doing it all, hyper independent.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she was just a machine and never made it look anything other than just natural, powered through everything that came her way, never mentioned, finding it hard or anything like that. She was just what I thought a true picture of resilience. She just made it look kind of like she was built for this life.
Yeah.
And, I was raised with that vision in my head of, what a good mum looks like, and also to be a good girl, high achieving. I was a perfectionist, so very much had my self-worth tied up in my achievement. So, my self-worth, my feelings of self-worth were really derived from how well I was doing at whatever I was doing. I needed to be achieving to feel okay about myself. But I think that's not just my story. It's a really common story, right?
Yeah.
Really common.
I identify with it and see others I know who are still in that story. I think that's when interesting, because even though we might still be in it, but we can also have that perspective, I think, when you've done a bit of work on it. But when you see others still living and breathing it, has your mother ever said, did she ever say, I struggled? Or
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
oh, yeah.
now she does.
Now, yeah. Oh, yeah, now she's like, oh my God, that was really hard. I don't know how I did that. But at the time, you just, we didn't really, she sort of seemed inhuman in her coping and capabilities. And I think, I came into motherhood with that very perfectionist mindset, this is what you need to do to be a good mum, tick all the boxes, do all the things, make it look easy. And I ultimately failed to do so. and kind of crumbled at the first hurdle and very much let my like humanness take over. And it's only been, through doing that she's turned around and said like, yeah, it's actually really hard. You're doing a lot, but it's taken that kind of breakdown and like, shedding all the layers and coming face to face with all the stories about like, why is it important to me to do it that way? Like, why do I feel such a sense of like urgency and need to prove myself and need to do it all alone? Like, where does that come from? It's taken that kind of confrontation to really, I don't know, get a sense of an appreciation of just how much not only I'm doing, but as millennials, what we've, got going on. Because it's not just those stories from our childhood. It's also the fact that as millennials, we are the digital natives. We arrived online, on social media.
Yeah, just as we became adults.
Just as we became adults, just as we started having our children, we suddenly found ourselves living in two parallel worlds where, on the one hand, we've got our messy, very human, imperfect, sometimes chaotic and difficult reality. On the other hand, we've got this curated, perfect, like glossy, filtered reality that we carry in our pockets, that, somehow has become the measuring stick that we compare our lives to, but also it's become a real source of like information about how we can get things wrong. It's just constantly feeding us all of the expert tips and how-tos and do's and don'ts, and it's just relentless, isn't it?
Absolutely relentless. Can I just say It's absolutely relentless. And because you were such a tick boxer and wanting to get your career perfect, which you clearly did, you're very successful, but how did you personally, because that's what I really struggled with, because we'll talk a bit in a minute about we're the first of our friends to have a baby, so I felt this real pressure of like, I've got to keep my career and show them. But how did you feel like getting pregnant? Did that feel like, and knowing you were taking maternity leave, did that just feel like the ultimate clash, trying to be the perfect career woman and perfect mother?
Completely. I couldn't wrap my brain around it. And I think for at least the first period of my pregnancy, I hid it from people at work. I struggled to share it with them because in my head, I just thought, well, what are they going to think now? Look, she spent all of those years. I mean, I'd spent several years working toward a career path that felt like a good fit for me as the high achieving perfectionist that I was. It felt like a really solid like piece of my identity that just suddenly felt really incongruent with being a mum. Like I couldn't make them meet in my head. So for a while I just kind of focused on work and wouldn't let my brain even get used to the idea of being a mum. And obviously, as the pregnancy went on, I became more used to the fact that, I'm going to have to find a new way forward. And I mean, I even went for a job interview when I was like 7 months pregnant.
What did you?
Yeah, I turned up with my big bump and had put myself forward for a job that I thought I was the perfect fit for, even though I was 7 months pregnant at the time. I did get the job. They offered it to me and they said, oh, we'll wait for you for when, you'll finish your maternity leave.
It's amazing.
But in my head, I hadn't accounted for the fact that I would be changed by this thing. Like I wouldn't be the version of me turning up to that job wouldn't be the version who accepted it. Like I would be a completely new version of me. And I didn't, obviously you don't know that until you're in it. And it wasn't till I had my firstborn and I was like, the career I've just spent like 8 years building just doesn't make any sense anymore. I don't feel like I fit this.
But haven't we also been like kind of striving for that, like exactly what you did, going for a job interview at 7 months pregnant is what we've been saying should be happening, but at the same time not appreciating the change amongst that in ourselves. Like that's kind of, because I feel like 21, I remember this actually, I remember I was like 24 in a job and my boss, a woman came in with her baby, she had taken a promotion for after, and I was like, yes, good on her, they're promoting her. She's come in with a baby and she's such a smashing it woman as well in a senior leadership position in the NHS. And I was like, as a 24-year-old woman, I was like, this is what we want. But then it's good to showcase this side of like, is that what we should be having in a way? Is that right for everyone?
Yeah, it's obviously not right for everyone. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
push and pull. I think there's two different things happening. You know, we're talking about women's rights and mothers' rights at work, and we're
Yeah.
also talking about the significant identity transition that's happening underneath the surface. For me, it was very much the identity piece that felt really hard to make sense of and navigate as someone who liked control, who liked knowing what was going to happen next, who liked, being able to manage myself and manage how people saw me. And yeah, just, smash through everything that came my way. But suddenly I was like, I feel like I'm just living in a life that doesn't fit who I really am. And I need to sit with that and unpick that and potentially reroute, which I eventually did, because I did try and make it work for a bit, but I just couldn't make those two parts meet. And I mean, over time, I've realized that ultimately I wasn't on the right path or a path that felt like me. And motherhood's actually brought me closer to who I really am. But it's taken a lot of like peeling back and deconstructing and all of the things, unbecoming essentially, all of the things that really weren't me in the first place.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's amazing to do that work, because I think, I had to, it was my second baby during a pandemic, and almost losing him that made me do that. So it took me a long time. But do you think, because you're a psychologist, you could really understand with yourself at some point, once you're ready to, something wasn't fitting or identity wasn't going?
Yeah, I think similar to you, I think it was around when my second baby arrived, I was just like, I can't sustain this part of me. It's not, I mean, everyone talks about balance, but I talk a lot about harmony. Like, this part of me wasn't living in harmony with the other part of me that felt like it wanted to take over, like this more creative side, because ultimately I am a creative, but I didn't feel like a creative in my academic job. I felt kind of stifled in that way and just ticking the boxes and doing all of the things that were a part of my role. But it was like when I had my second baby, it suddenly felt like the different parts of my identity weren't living in harmony anymore. And I had to try and find a different way, a different path forward. So yeah, it was a push. It kind of felt like the pressure, like maybe with your second, it applied the pressure that you kind of needed to reevaluate. Yeah, it does.
I wanted to say if that's common, because you do sometimes see it, like people managing with a first, but then the second comes along, and especially the second tends to be very different to the first. So it's like, if, in either way, whether it, challenges with sleep or character, just they're different human beings, aren't they? I think then it's a stark reality to how much you can't control by the fact you have two different human beings versus you didn't create a carbon copy of the first. And I wonder, do you think that's quite common? It's more the second that is a real push towards realizing you've kind of got not to change, but find who you are a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it and heard of it at all different points, to be honest with you. I think for me, it was like, and I get what you mean, like the more you have, the more children you have, the less capacity you have and the less like resource you have available, and you have to find the most efficient and the most you way of working and moving forward. So I understand what you mean by that, but I think I knew that this change was coming even when I had my first, like I said, it didn't feel like it fit anymore. And I had to, I think at that point I was kind of the mind that something would change, but I didn't know what it was or when it would be. And it was only really when my second came along, I knew kind of what my way forward was. I had a clearer sense of that.
Something I've loved to talk to you about, because I remember listening to you talking about this and I so relate to it, and I feel like it's a really important discussion to have, especially as millennial mothers. But you, along with me, were the first of your friends to have a baby, and I think it's so important to talk about the pressure there. So I think it's such a hard time when you're the first, because I think your friends might be aware about having children and starting to be aware of fertility and worrying about it. So, but that I really felt there was the narrative of you can't complain as a mother, even though me and my friends will always complain about our job, our husbands, our homes or something. And I felt there was that narrative as well as the pressure with career and the pressure to not change. because I've had a baby, and to not be a mum. What can you identify with? Did you feel any of that as the first of your friends to become a mum?
Gosh, definitely. I think even from the beginning, from when I became pregnant, I was very aware of like not complaining about being pregnant, because I mean, I didn't enjoy being pregnant any of the times. It just wasn't really an experience that I loved. I found it really hard mentally, physically, emotionally. But even like, you know, my kind of not ambivalence in my first pregnancy, but the not being sure what to make of, you know, how I feel about this. I didn't know how much of that to share, or, you know, with my friends, especially knowing that, you know, maybe one might want a baby, maybe one doesn't want one right now, but might in the future, and maybe I'm putting them off. You know, there was all of that. And even when I had the babies, it's like, how much do I tell them about birth and the daily struggles and like all of that stuff?
Or even just sending a picture, it felt a bit like, oh, is this being too indulgent?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how much do you share without, you know, creating feelings on their side that maybe aren't very fair? And so I held back quite a lot. And also I kind of like, I hung my hopes on trying to find mum friends once I'd had a baby, like thinking it's fine. Maybe I don't need to tell them all of these bits, because when I have my baby, I'll find my mum friends and then I'll have people to talk to about all of this stuff. But that ultimately didn't happen the way that I thought it might. So yeah, I think there was a real pressure there of like, how much do I tell them? And also, they just can't connect. I don't feel like I can connect with them in the same way, because I've gone through something that's like deeply profound, and I don't know how to make sense of it to myself, let alone explain it to anyone else. And also, we're not living the same life anymore. We're in completely different chapters. That, you know, that feels like a bit of a, you know, hard one to translate to someone who hasn't really been through it. And like, my sister and I talk about this all the time, because I became a mum before she did, and she was like, I just didn't get it until I became a mum as well. Like, everything you were going through at that time, I just couldn't have even appreciated all of that. Even like the physical recovery after birth, I was like, what's wrong with you? But that's the sort of relationship me and my sister have.
I think all sisters could relate to that.
All sisters can relate to that. She's like, come on, like, get up.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah.
What are you doing? What's wrong?
Just had a baby.
Yeah, literally. But it is a hard one, isn't it?
I love what you say there as well. It's like that pressure to make mum friends. And for me, I don't know how you felt, but I don't feel like myself at all. So how can I really go out? It's like trying to choose a partner at your wrong time of life, like trying to make new friends and really care about them at a time where you like are so all over the place. I just couldn't. I really struggled with that. It took like one good friend to really stick with me to be like a new friend that actually worked from that period. But otherwise, you know, do you think that can contribute to the lack of community if your friends haven't been through it and you're struggling to make new friends because you're struggling to know yourself? I mean, not everyone's like that. I can see that from many people who have made amazing mum friends, but I was clearly like that. I know. Do you feel that can happen?
Oh gosh, yeah, definitely. I think there's, you know, many things going on for people. I think for me, my expectation was that when I became a mum, I was going to make like really deep friendships. I was really hoping for that. Because although I did have friends, I think for my whole life, I've found navigating friendship really tricky, and, you know, feeling like I'm holding parts of myself back. Maybe they don't really know me. Do they even like me? Like all of these things, you know, feeling like I'm in sometimes, then I'm out on other times. Like I've always found navigating friendships really hard. And I think when I became a mum, I almost felt like, right, this is my chance now to make those deep, like, sisterhood bonds that I see so many people have. And I think this is a really common thing. Like, the more I speak to mums, the more I hear back, like, oh my God, I felt like that too. Like, I was going to meet my people here, like when I became a mum. And then it didn't really happen for, you know, whatever reason. And like you say, some people make amazing friends when they become mums. Yeah. But for me, it just didn't happen in the way that I thought it was going to happen. And that was a real sense of loss that I felt around that, you know, not making the friendships I imagined that I would make, but also feeling disconnected from the ones that I had in almost like a previous life. You know, friendships that just felt like, I just don't even feel like I fit anymore in those relationships. There's so much shifting and like transition going on, you know, not just personally, but in our relationships that people just don't talk about enough. We hear a lot about like the partner relationship and what can happen to that. But I think our wider circles, we don't talk about those ones very much. But for me, that felt like a really huge piece of what was going on.
I can imagine during that time as well, because you're on maternity leave, you think, oh, I'm going to have these people I'll go for coffees with and things like that. It's a really intense period in itself, and one you do need people around.
You do.
Like when you're ready, because you need so you need that recovery period, and then you need people around. And I can imagine, I remember it was finally when my kids started school, I was like, oh, okay, there's more of my people here. Like, it was weird. And I don't know if I was just ready for more friendships that I wasn't.
Yeah.
COVID,
yeah.
I think. But I think it's that piece of like, not everyone has their friendships at the same time as everyone else.
Yes.
And some of us aren't going to become mums and meet all our mum friends straight up.
No, but we have that expectation, like so many of us, because we have that coffee date image in our head, right? It's like the maternity leave, like the pram walks and the coffee and like the deep chats and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I was hoping that I would find, and I just didn't. But like you, I've kind of found my people, like not as many of them as I thought, but I found, you know, I've got a handful of really deep, nurturing relationships that I have found in other ways since becoming a mum. And for me, like, you know, through being creative and starting a business and things like that, that's where I've kind of found my people who are of a similar brain, of a similar mindset, also, you know, creative, also with the kids and the chaos and all of that stuff, and can just really, like, I feel like I'm finding my people that way, which is not the conventional way.
I so relate to that. I think there's something powerful about entrepreneurship and businesshood, especially when you're a mother and having to navigate it a bit differently.
There is. Yeah.
I've found such amazing friendships there.
Same.
And with deeper chats versus the mum groups when I'm like on my last legs in a baby sensory class, not being able to engage with anyone. I've made friends in business networks I hadn't expected. And I think it's that awareness, and maybe that's a showcase of maybe how our brains work differently. I don't know, with the creative side. Yeah.
I think that could be it as well. I mean, I found the baby sensory classes an absolute nightmare. I hated every single second. And so did my baby. Funnily enough. So, yeah.
I'm taking it only the first you tried them with, not the second.
Oh no, I didn't even bother. I've done nothing with the second and the third. I just could not. And that's fine. Like, that's okay. Fine. But I think, like, the first time I felt such a pressure. I was like, I have to do all the things. I have to get this right for him and his, like, development. I have to do sensory and yoga and baby swimming and all of the horrible, like, sensory nightmare, like, classes. I found them really difficult. But yeah, second and third time around, I'm just like, you know what? You have everything you need, and you'll tell me when you want to do something. That's my approach now. Even with all of them, honestly, I don't push anything. And my son, who is now my eldest, who's nearly 7, he's only now getting to a point where he's like, I think I want to try this class. I'm like, okay, we'll try that. That's fine. I'm following your lead.
It's a real thing. My eldest is 7 and he's been like, I want to do ice skating. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure. Like, it wasn't, and it's always something you don't expect. It wasn't the football, the cricket, and I was even gymnastics. It wasn't any of it I'm expected. And he's like, are we going? And I'm like, I'm really trying.
I love that.
No, but it's so nice because you start to see, okay, that's it. You've told me what you want to do.
Yeah.
And talking about that pressure, because I think that's a real key point we've got onto. Right now we're recording this. I think it's the 8th of December. I can see on my laptop. Christmas is a peak pressure point. And I love what you've talked about letting go of the perfect festive season, which we're all guilty of. I'm guilty of it every year. How can this show up in motherhood especially, and especially maybe even the early years, which we've both come out of, like that peak pressure for Christmas to be that perfect? How can we manage that?
It's a really hard one to manage because we are constantly reminded that we only have so many Christmases. Like, we are constantly... It's like summer, and it's just
Yeah.
like you're constantly being reminded of the fact that one day you're living the days that you will one day miss. And like even this morning, I saw a post that was like, I'm 80 years old and my husband asked me what I want for Christmas. And I said, just one more Christmas with them when they're little. And it's just like, okay, that's brought a tear to my eye and also added a pressure that I didn't need today to make the most of this season. Like we hear that all the time. You got to make the most of it. Like it won't last. And I think that pressure in itself just adds another layer on top of all of it that we just don't need. Like, yes, they are one day going to be grown up. Yes, we're not going to have this time forever. But can we be realistic about what that looks like? It's not going to be happy, smiley, like all of the magic in every single moment. We are human beings at the end of the day. And, potentially neurodivergent ones like mine are, who find Christmas very, very difficult to cope with. All of the unstructured time and the excitement and the disruption can cause a real challenge in our household. So it often isn't the magical festive season that lots of people make it sound like. And I think, we see on social media constantly, don't we? People doing all of the festive activities, all of the days out, all of the extra stuff in the house, the elves, the 1st of December box, the Christmas Eve box, There's
a 1st of December box? I did not get that.
Yes.
I mean, I don't do Christmas Eve boxes because I'm like, guys, presents are tomorrow.
No, I don't.
That's exciting enough.
Exactly. I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? But
we can all watch a
1st of
Christmas
December.
film. That's it.
Yes, that is it in my house as well. I'm like, right, we'll get into our festive pajamas that we've all had for the last 7 years that, we're all in hand-me-downs or I've bought the next size up from Vinted. We'll all get in our pajamas, we'll watch a Christmas film, and then our excitement will be tomorrow because I'm not doing a Christmas Eve box. I'm doing too many other things. I'm just not doing it. But that's what we see. This is the narrative. And it's like, if you're not, what our brains do is it thinks, if I'm not doing that, I'm not making the most of it. Like that's the message we kind of internalize, that we need to be doing all of the things to really relish this time. We need to be booking all of the festive experiences. We need to be doing all of the elf things and the box things. Like we need to be doing the most we can by packing out our calendars and our to-do lists to truly relish this time. But what all of that stuff does is actually takes us away from this time, because a lot of it is a distraction. When, we're filling our days with all of the things, we're adding more and more and more to our to-do list, it's actually taking us away from like ourselves and the moment that we're in. It's literally the presence. It's taking our presence away from the moment because we're trying to perfect this season and get it right and make the most of it. So I don't subscribe to a lot of it, and I just focus on the really simple ways that mark this season for us, and really lean into like, what are they going to remember out of all of this stuff? Like, what are the really salient things that I know really stand out to them for that, like for my kids, and I'm getting like specific on examples, but they really
I like, what do you focus on?
What do I focus on? I focus on the Christmas tree decorations. They get excited every year to get them down. That's like a big deal for them. Like it might as well be Christmas Day. They get all the boxes down from the loft. They go through all the boxes and they're like, oh, remember this one? Oh, remember that one? And it's a whole thing. They decorate the tree as much as it pains my soul to watch. I don't watch it.
Former perfectionist.
Literally eats me alive, but they do it. And my youngest, who's 18 months, has literally stripped the bottom half bare. So my eldest has moved. Of course. So my eldest has had to move all the decorations up to the top half of the tree where she can't reach it. So my tree looks like it has been dragged through. Very top heavy. Literally. It looks battered. It's been up like a week. But a lot of the decorations mean something to them as well. They've either made it Or every year I try and let them pick a new decoration that we can buy for the tree. So we'll go and buy the Christmas tree, and then they'll pick one decoration each that means something or reflects their interest at that time, like something they're really interested in. Like my youngest is loving tractors at the minute, so I let her pick a tractor decoration.
Oh, so cute.
So it means something, and every year they get excited about these decorations
because it's their ones. I remember that with my tree, the ones that were ours that came out. So do I. Yeah.
And I think that that's helped me lean into that, because I'm like, I remember what that was like. I remember that feeling of like, that's my decoration, like that's my special one. And so I really lean into that for them. I don't do lots of festive activities outside of the house because it never goes well for us. It always
Three
leads
children,
to meltdown.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yes, it's all very expensive generally as well.
It is.
It's extortionate. And also, I mean, as a psychologist, I know that the more we fill our time, the quicker it goes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, it's called time distortion. So basically, it's like the blurring of actual passing time and our perception of it. The more we fill our time, the more we distract ourselves with things, the faster it goes. Versus the more we slow down and really take notice, the slower it goes. So the more we can relish it. So it's like the old saying like a watched pot never boils. If you stand and wait for a pot to boil and you're watching it and waiting, time feels like it slows right down, doesn't it? And it feels like it takes forever. Versus if you put a pot on the stove and you busy yourself doing things around the kitchen, you're loading the dishwasher, you're dealing with this, you're dealing with that, time flies, and before you know it, the water's like bubbling out of the pot, right? Well, I take that same principle and apply it to Christmas. I'm like, the more I distract myself and pack out our time, and I'm busy myself doing this and that and the other thing, the less I'm going to notice the time that's passing in front of me with my children, versus slowing down, doing less, focusing on, doing things at home, like watching the Christmas films, like literally just sitting up the table and doing some Christmas coloring. The more I slow down, the more I'm going to notice and remember, and the more they are as well. So I take comfort in that, and I let that release me. I let that release me from the pressure to do all of the festive experiences, because I just think I'm not going to be able to really make the most of that if I do all of the things. I really want to remember this time with them. And so I really focus on the things that make it important to me.
Yeah.
And
I feel the same with like Elf on the Shelf and all of that. If I was up late doing that, I'd be so tired and not enjoying any of this. And I want to enjoy some of it.
Yeah, it's like it, and they say, it's your Christmas too and things like that. And as much as some of us like roll our eyes and go, yeah, well, we know, but we're busy doing all of the things. It is our Christmas too. And we can factor in our joy into it as well. And like, for me, like a part of my joy is my Christmas candle that I buy every year that I love the smell of. And I remember I bought it last year, and when I got it out of the box, my eldest like took a sniff of it, and I said, oh, what does that smell like? And he went, Christmas. And I was like, you see, these are the things, aren't they, that I really anchor in. I'm like, what do they get excited about? The decorations. What brings Christmas to their mind? Things like smells, which do for me as well from when I was a child. And like just really slowing down and not letting myself bow down to the pressure of like the social media Christmas. It's not sustainable, and actually we're not making the most of our time by doing that.
I love that. I'm very anti that. And for anyone who might be in the thick of it, like with a newborn or a little baby or toddler, I remember it was chaos the first time my child was a toddler. What can they do to help themselves who are just feeling like I'm just running from one day to the next? It's not even about the social media part. And because they might be also going through some recovery. I think I'm really aware of women in the early years. They might still be making sense of becoming that identity shift you talked about, as well as recovering from some kind of trauma, unfortunately, with the stats we've got. How can they get through this time?
I think it's so important for us to be really gentle with ourselves. And I know that sounds like another like, oh, how do I actually do that? But when we are in that transition, it goes on for so much longer than what we realize all of the time. And I think just being really gentle and realistic with ourselves about what's actually possible, about the fact that we are becoming a new version of ourselves, and that doesn't happen overnight. And that feels a lot like being lost. When you are in the middle of that becoming process and you're not really sure of who you are right now, and who you were feels really far away, and you're not really sure, you can't see the end to this thing, and it just feels like you're in the thick of that. That feels a lot like being lost, and like you can't really come up for air, or your feet can't find solid ground, and it's really hard to make sense of. But it's so important to be aware of that process, and to be gentle and to be kind with yourself as you become more of yourself, and as you coming for landing in the new version of yourself. Like it's a much longer process than people realize. And it's one I've been on 3 times, and it always takes longer. It always takes longer than what you think it is. And
yeah,
it does. Like even like this time last year, I'd had my youngest, and she was, how old was she? It takes a while to work out the more you have. She was about 8 months old this time last year. And like looking back from this year to last year, I can see how lost I felt. Like I just felt so lost this time last year. I was like, I don't know who I was, or who I am, or who I'm becoming, or who I'm meant to be. And I just feel, like you said, I'm just going from thing to thing, and I'm just on the hamster wheel of this part of my life, and I'm not able to come up for air. And where does it end? But I can see now just how much more kindness I deserved at that point, where I was just I was in the process. I was in the process of becoming, and that was taking longer than I thought it was going to. And that's fine. And I think slowing down and really appreciating like how far you've come to that point is really powerful. Like taking a look in the rearview mirror and seeing like, what have I achieved? Like, look at everything I've done. And like I put up a post the other day about this on social media, because this time of year, lots of people like to share their big achievements and what they've done for the year, right?
That. Yeah.
It's such like look at my 2025 recap and all of the things that I've made happen this year. And I think as a mum in the thick of it, it can feel like when you're in the trenches, like, oh my God, I'm so far behind. Like, I'm just not keeping up with everyone. And I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing and what I've actually accomplished this year, because it feels like nothing, because I've been in the trenches and in the day-to-day, like, grind of this. Literally, it's just relentless and thankless and, exhausting at times. But you're doing so much more than you realize. And like growth looks different when you become a mom. It's not always about the shiny achievements and the like really tangible ways that you've grown. Like, when a plant or a tree is growing, a lot of that growth happens underground. And I think when you're a mum, so much of our growth happens beneath the surface. We don't see it. We don't appreciate it. So we think it's not happening, but it is. And I want to say to that mum in the trenches right now who feels like nothing's happening for me, or like, what am I actually doing? I'm not achieving anything. I'm not even myself right now. And I don't know how to come up for air. I just want to say, like, you're doing a really hard thing beautifully, and there is so much more growth happening right now than what you could even realize. And look at how far you've come, and you've still got, who knows where you'll be in a year's time, but I know that you'll look back on this time and you'll see just how much you were doing, and just how deserving you are of rest and grace and credit and all of the things that you are due right now.
I love that. I feel like it's so true. Like the messy bit where you're recovering or changing, it's so uninstagrammable, and it's the part people always like skip to, of like, oh, I'm so grateful I went through that. And like when you're in it, like I can have vivid memories of being in it, and it's like no one cares. It's like almost like no one cares you're in it, because it's like
it is like that. You feel so like unseen and so lost, like so untethered, and like no one sees you, and you're kind of like, you feel really adrift and like lost to like wider society, because life seems to be lifing without you. That's how it feels, doesn't it? And it's so like true. life is lifing, and you're just here in mum life, just, doing all of this invisible work that no one sees, but it's so important. And you're keeping the world spinning for these children, and no one seems to see you. And it feels really thankless, and like really like you're just completely invisible to the wider world. And, been there, sometimes still in it. And it's really hard, and it's really like you are in process right now. And like you say, that's the bit that people don't talk about. You're in the messy middle of this and no one talks about it. But there is a lot more happening than what you realize. We see the start and we see the finish, but we don't see all of the messy, invisible work that happens in between. And when you're in the thick of that, it can feel really isolating, and like no one really sees you. And that's very hard.
That is. And I think recognizing that's hard, isn't it? Enough.
So hard.
And as you are a mum of three, and I still say in the thick of it with an 18-month-old. How do you carve space for your own well-being with your work and three children?
Well, I don't do it alone. That's the difference. I have a support system, which I'm extremely lucky to say that. I have got a mother-in-law who helps me when she can. I have got a mum who helps me when she can, who's literally 15 minutes away. My husband is amazing, and we work very much as a team. So I don't do it alone, and I don't pretend to do it alone either. Like, I'm very well bolstered in my support systems, but not everybody has that. And I think, I was saying this to a mum recently. She was like, you talk about the importance of support, and what if we just don't have it? And I said to her, support isn't always physical and practical support. Sometimes support means being gentler with ourselves about what's possible. Like, where can we lower the bar? That's support as well. And, I've done that for myself sometimes too, when my husband's working away for an extended period, or my mum's not available, or I can't have, my mother-in-law isn't around. I've had to be more realistic about what's possible. Where can I cut corners? Where can I lower the bar and make, my standards a bit more human, so that I account for the fact that I am doing this alone right now, and I am juggling a lot, and that's really hard. How can I make this a bit more humane for myself and drop those standards? So I think support looks different depending on who you are. For me, my support is practical, and that I'm really lucky to have that, and that allows me to tend to myself. And for me, tending to myself happens through work. And I know, as a society, mums feel there's so much guilt wrapped up in work and motherhood, and not missing the time and being there for your kids when they're really little. But for me, my work is an outlet for me, and it provides creative rest. I actually feel recharged by doing my work and able to show up better for my children. If I haven't had time to work, I am a less patient version of myself. I don't show up in the way that I want to, because I haven't been able to restore my soul by creatively expressing myself. That's who I am as a human, but everyone's looks different.
Absolutely.
I'm guessing that yours is creative as well because of the nature of your work, right?
Exactly. I know if I've got joy at work, as in I'm moving forwards and doing what I'm doing, I'm a better mum. That's it. And it's not the case for everyone. And obviously I have to work as well. Pay the bill. And it's not that for everyone. But I think it's when I know I've been employed as a mum as well, and I know the other side of it, and it's not that for everyone, but I know for me it doesn't work. And this version works so much better for us all.
Yeah, same. You just have to find what works for you, don't you?
And I'm definitely taking your more human, what can I let go of and be more human about? I'm taking that into 2026. I think that's such a good reframe. I've not heard that way of talking about it before. So thank you for that. Tuesday, this has been such an amazing episode. Honestly, I could dive into so much more with you. I had more questions, but I'm so pleased with everything going into. But something I love talking about, along with being more human and what's so important for you, I think we've answered that because it is your work is what brings you joy. And maybe we could even ask how I think for me, relearning as well, because it's not just my work. I also found going to dance classes like was my joy, and I needed to pick that up again and do that for me. How can a mother who's lost in the trenches rediscover what actually brings them joy, kind of thing, to do?
It's so much easier said than done, right? Because we all want to find our joy, and sometimes when as mothers we don't know what our joy is anymore because our joy has changed, and I know it did for me, definitely. But I think slowing down, maybe this Christmas season, mums set themselves a challenge. I'm going to slow down long enough just to ask myself, or just to notice, not even ask myself what I enjoy, because sometimes it feels like too hard of a question to even answer for ourselves. But sometimes maybe what we can do instead is just slow down enough to notice when we do enjoy something, like just really tune into ourselves when we've laughed at something, or when we feel energized by something, like a conversation, or sitting down with a journal, or going out for a walk. What actually like lit us up just then? What was that we enjoyed about that thing, that we really felt like we tapped into a part of ourselves that we haven't been able to access all of the time in this part of life? It's slowing down enough to notice when we have that joy, versus, turning to ourselves and saying, what do you enjoy? Sometimes that feels too difficult to answer when we just haven't got the bandwidth for that kind of question.
Who knows?
But I think if we can notice about ourselves when we're smiling, when we're laughing, when we feel genuinely energized by something, then we become able to get a bit closer to that joy, get a bit closer to naming that joy, and then being able to create more of it for ourselves.
That's so good. I'm going to give a little example, because I'm not a morning or a Monday person, and I was so grumpy with my husband in the car who was trying to engage with me. And then I had a coffee, I was walking home, and I bumped into just a school mum who I'm friends with, and we just had a little chat, and I was like, that cheered me up. And it was like being able to name it. Sometimes it's a real chat with no purpose, just a hi, and it's like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it's probably a 4-minute chat, and I was like, great, that's what I needed to perk me up, was a little engagement with another person, kind of thing.
But there's research on that. There is research on that about how our like casual interactions with people are actually beneficial to our well-being. And so often we place heavy importance on having these very deep, nurturing relationships, when actually those micro interactions that we have with people can lift us in ways that we could never anticipate, because just those little exchanges, like you just said, bumping in, saying hi, how are you, how's it going, just feeling seen by another human being for a few minutes lifts us up in ways that we didn't realize we'd been needing. So I know we place heavy importance on the deep ties and bonds and connections, but actually those casual ones really matter as well. So it's interesting you've just said that.
Okay, I love it. I'm glad I brought a good example to the table for that.
Really
Sometimes
good.
good to do a lived one. Tuesday, this has been such a wonderful chat. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your work and what you do?
Well, thank you. I've loved our chat. People can find me on Instagram or on TikTok at I am Dr. Tuesday, and there you'll find me talking all about the human side of motherhood.
Wonderful. Yes, I'm all for the human side, so thanks so much for following it this Christmas. But thank you so much, and Merry Christmas. I hope you have a slow and magical one with the children.
Thank you. I hope you do as well.
Thank you so much for listening to Bump to Business Owner. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please do rate, review, follow, or subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps us to connect with more mums and business owners. You can DM me on @BumpToBusinessOwner on Instagram, and I'll be back next week.